What if the chaos swirling around you isn't the world's fault, but a storm brewing inside? Picture yourself in a bustling cafe, the air heavy with the aroma of fresh coffee, the soft clatter of cups mingling with murmured conversations. Your phone lights up with a text from a friend, short, almost cold. Your stomach twists. They're upset with me. I must have screwed up. Before you can blink, your mind's off to the races, weaving tales of rejection, betrayal, and old hurts you thought were long buried. Does that sound like you? This is where our journey starts, not with blame, but with a truth that might pinch. You haven't yet mastered your emotions, and that's okay. The question is, are you ready to try? Meet Lila, a 34-year-old graphic designer with a bright smile and a phone full of saved, motivational quotes. Lila fancies herself emotionally savvy. She's devoured books on mindfulness, psychology, even brain science, and her Instagram is a shrine to gratitude. Her co-workers call her the Zen One. But last Tuesday, when a client emailed her with blunt feedback on a logo design, "This isn't what we wanted," Lila unraveled. She didn't snap or sob. Instead, she sat at her desk, her pulse hammering, her mind yanked back to age 12. Standing in her middle school art room as her teacher scoffed at her sketch, saying, "This is lazy work." The client's email wasn't just criticism, it felt like a verdict on her worth. Lila didn't realize it, but she wasn't reacting to the email. She was reliving that moment, decades old, as if it were happening now. Here's the raw truth. Your emotions aren't always honest. They're not clear snapshots of the present, but warped reflections of your inner world, your fears, your beliefs, the wounds you've carried since you were small. When someone brushes you off, like Lila's client, it's not just a fleeting slight, it's a spark that ignites old pain. Maybe you grew up in a noisy household, your voice drowned out by louder siblings, leaving you feeling invisible. Maybe criticism cuts deep because a coach or parent once implied love was conditional on perfection. These aren't just feelings, they're patterns etched into your brain by years of repetition. And the hardest part? You don't even see them pulling your strings. Let's rewind to Lila as a child. She's 10, sitting at a worn kitchen table in her family's modest home, the scent of spaghetti sauce filling the air. Her older sister, always the star, is recounting a school play, her parents hanging on every word. Lila pipes up, eager to share a story about a drawing she made, but her dad waves her off, distracted by a work call. It's a tiny moment, insignificant to everyone else, but to Lila, it's a seed planted. That night, she lies in bed, the moonlight casting shadows across her room, a quiet ache settling in. I'm not enough. Fast forward 24 years, and that ache resurfaces every time someone dismisses her. She's not responding to the present, she's stuck at that kitchen table, replaying the same hurt. This is the trap we all stumble into. Your mind is a storyteller, but it's not always truthful. When you feel slighted, your brain doesn't just process the moment. It dives into its vault, dragging up every time you felt unworthy or rejected. Science explains this. Your amygdala, the brain's emotional trigger, fires before your prefrontal cortex, the logical part, can intervene. In that split second, you're not choosing your reaction. You're on autopilot, following a script written by someone else. And here's the twist. That script isn't even yours. It's a patchwork of lessons absorbed from parents, teachers, and early heartaches. You learn to lash out when ignored because anger felt safer than invisibility. You learn to shrink under criticism because it shielded you from harsher blows. But you're not that kid anymore. So why are you still playing by their rules? Now meet Ethan, a 42-year-old history teacher and father of three, known for his quick wit and endless supply of corny jokes. Ethan's the guy everyone loves at parent-teacher conferences, but when his partner Nora casually corrects him during a family barbecue, his shoulders tense. He doesn't argue, but inside, he's seething. Why? Because as a teenager, Ethan's father, a gruff mechanic, never let him win a debate. Disagreement was defiance, and defiance meant a cold silence that could last days. Now, at 42, every contradiction feels like a test he's failing. Ethan doesn't connect the dots, but his anger isn't about Nora's comment. It's about a boy desperate to be heard. The real horror is how invisible this cycle is. You think you're being yourself, bold, sensitive, real, but you're not. You're acting out programming installed by others. Every glance, every word, every perceived slight triggers a reaction you don't control. Your mind backs you up, whispering, "You're justified. It's okay to be hurt." But it's hiding the truth. That anger, that anxiety, that knot in your chest. You've felt it before, over and over, and you'll keep feeling it unless you break the loop. The enemy isn't the harsh client or the distracted friend. It's that automatic reaction, that fleeting second between the trigger and your response. A second you could use to choose differently if you only knew how. So, how do you start? With a pause. Not a cinematic slow-motion moment, but a quiet, intentional breath. Imagine Lila back at her desk, staring at that client's email. Instead of letting her heart race, she closes her eyes, inhales deeply, and asks, "What am I feeling? Why does this sting?" In that pause, she traces the thread back to that childhood kitchen table. She doesn't shove the emotion away or berate herself. She observes it, like an artist studying a canvas. That's where freedom begins, not in burying your feelings, but in understanding them. This isn't simple. No one taught you to pause. You grew up in a culture that celebrates reaction. Speak louder, fight harder, feel everything deeply. Introspection? That's for the weak. You were told emotions are either a flaw or the ultimate truth. But they're neither. Feeling isn't understanding. You might feel betrayed when a colleague cancels a meeting, but maybe they're just swamped. You might feel like a failure when a plan falls apart, but maybe you're just growing. If you can't question your emotions, you're their captive, and a captive heart is never free. Now that you've glimpsed the strings of your reactions, let's dig into the voice narrating your life. You know it, the one that pipes up when you're alone, dissecting your every move. You blew it again. You're not good enough. Why does this always happen? It's relentless, and it feels like you. But here's a truth that might jolt you. That voice isn't fully yours. It's a mosaic built from the words of your past, parents, peers, first heartbreaks. And it's been steering your emotions since you were too young to challenge it. Picture Maya, a 29-year-old event planner with a talent for turning chaos into magic. Maya's the one her team relies on, cool-headed even when deadlines loom. But when she's alone, her inner voice turns sharp. Last month, she pitched a creative idea for a client's gala, only for her manager to dismiss it with a brisk, "It's too out there." Maya nodded, smiled, and returned to her desk. But inside, her mind was a war zone. "I'm so stupid. Why did I think that would work? I'll never measure up." That evening, she sat on her balcony, the city lights twinkling below, and scrolled through old photos. One stopped her, a shot from when she was 15, at a school talent show. She'd performed a poem, pouring her heart out, only for a popular girl, Tara, to snicker afterward. "You're trying way too hard." That moment, buried for years, still shapes Maya's inner script. Every rejection feels like Tara's laugh, echoing across time. This inner voice is a flawed guide, driven by fear, not wisdom. It's why shame hits so hard, not because of what just happened, but because of something that wounded you long ago. Let's revisit Ethan, our teacher. At 42, he's still haunted by his father's voice. Growing up, Ethan's dad had a mantra: "Don't argue with me." Once, when Ethan was 14, he tried explaining why he'd stayed late at school. A group project ran over. His father's eyes narrowed and he snapped, "Excuses are for the weak." Ethan never forgot the way his throat tightened, the way he felt like he'd failed at being a son. Now, when Nora corrects him, that same shame floods back, whispering, "You're weak. Don't speak." His anger isn't about the present. It's about a teenager still trying to prove his worth. This narrative is seductive. It's comforting in a strange way because it's familiar. Your brain craves what it knows, even if it hurts. That's why you repeat the same arguments with new people, the same self-sabotage with new dreams. Unknown calm feels scarier than known turmoil. But here's the light at the end of the tunnel. You can rewrite that story. It starts with metacognition, thinking about your thoughts. Imagine Maya, after that rejected pitch, stepping back and asking, "Why am I calling myself stupid? Where's this coming from?" She traces the thought to Tara's snicker, to years of feeling like she had to try too hard to be seen. By observing the thought, she weakens its hold. She's not the thought, she's the one watching it. Let's add another story with Diego, a 38-year-old carpenter who's built a small furniture business from the ground up. Diego's a perfectionist, but it's not by choice. As a kid, his grandfather, who taught him woodworking, was his idol, kind but unrelenting about craft. Once, when Diego was 11, he proudly showed his grandfather a hand-carved box. The old man ran his fingers over it and sighed. "The joints are sloppy. Start over." It wasn't cruel, but it crushed Diego. Now, when a client questions his work, Diego's inner voice snarls, "You're a hack. You'll never get it right." But last week, Diego tried something new. After a client asked for a table redesign, he paused, took a deep breath, and thought, "Is this about the table, or is it about Grandpa's sigh?" He saw the pattern, and instead of spiraling, he nodded, made the changes, and moved on. The weight lifted just a little. Rewriting your narrative isn't just about catching thoughts. It's about confronting your identity. Who are you without your self-doubt? Without your need to be perfect? For Maya, that question is daunting. Her try-hard identity, painful as it is, feels like home. But last weekend, she did something bold. She joined a storytelling workshop, something she's dodged for years, terrified of being judged. Her palms sweated as she stood before strangers, her voice wobbly. But she told her story, and when she finished, no one laughed. No one called her a fraud. Her inner voice tried to pounce. "You sounded pathetic." But she caught it and thought, "I was brave. That's enough." That moment rewrote a small piece of her script. This takes courage because it means dismantling what's familiar. It means sitting in silence, where there's no one to blame, no drama to hide in. But in that silence, you find yourself. And that's where change begins. Not with quick fixes or positive mantras, but with raw honesty and practice. You don't need a flawless life to find peace. You need a mind trained to pause, to question, to choose. Now that you've seen your reactions and the voice scripting them, let's talk about the moments that reshape everything. The small, quiet acts of rebellion against your old patterns. These aren't loud, heroic gestures. They're subtle choices, like speaking up when you'd rather fade away, or staying steady when your instincts urge you to lash out. Each act is a step toward a new you, one who responds with intention instead of reacting in chaos. Meet Zara, a 27-year-old social worker with a warm laugh and a habit of blending into the background. Zara's always been the reliable one, the person who takes on extra cases and never pushes back. But last month, something shifted. Her supervisor, a no-nonsense woman named Ms. Carter, criticized her in front of colleagues for a minor paperwork error. Zara's cheeks burned, and her inner voice kicked in. "You're useless. Everyone sees it." Normally, she'd apologize profusely and work late to prove herself. But this time, she paused. She felt the urge to shrink. But instead, she met Ms. Carter's gaze and said calmly, "I'll fix it. Can we discuss this privately next time?" Her voice shook, but she did it. Ms. Carter nodded, surprised, and moved on. For Zara, that moment was a quiet uprising. She didn't just defend herself. She defied the 13-year-old girl who once heard her aunt say, "Zara's too soft to stand out." These acts are what experts call progressive exposure, facing what scares you, not to suffer, but to retrain your brain. Every time you choose discomfort, you teach your nervous system that it's not a threat. Let's revisit Diego, our carpenter. For years, he avoided customer feedback, dreading criticism. But after catching his hack narrative, he decided to face it. One stormy evening, he sat in his workshop, the smell of sawdust in the air, and opened his business's online reviews. His hands trembled as he read a harsh comment. Overpriced and average. His chest tightened, but he didn't look away. He breathed and thought, "This isn't about Grandpa. It's just one voice." He kept reading. Some reviews stung, others glowed. By the end, he felt lighter. The feedback didn't define him. He'd faced the fear and come out stronger. These choices build emotional resilience, a skill that grows with practice. Picture Lila from earlier, who's been honing her pause. Last week, a friend cancelled their lunch plans via text. Lila's first instinct was to spiral. "She's dodging me. I'm not worth her time." But she stopped herself. She pulled out a notebook and wrote, "What's the evidence?" She jotted down the facts. Her friend was juggling a new job and a sick pet. The story of rejection fell apart. Instead of firing off a snarky reply, Lila texted, "No worries, hope you're okay. Let's try again soon." That choice, clarity over impulse, was a rebellion against her old script, and it felt like freedom. But here's something we rarely admit. Your environment shapes these rebellions. If you're surrounded by negativity, your brain soaks it up, wiring itself for conflict. Zara noticed this at work. Her office break room was a hub of complaints, and after shifts she'd feel drained, her inner voice harsher. So she made a change. She started taking breaks in a quiet park near the office, sitting on a bench with a thermos of tea, listening to a podcast on self-compassion, or writing down one thing she did well that day. It wasn't a fix-all, but it was a shield, a way to nurture calm amid the storm. You can't always control your surroundings, but you can create pockets of peace, a morning journal, a deep breath, a song that grounds you. Let's meet one more person. Omar, a 45-year-old pharmacist with a dry sense of humor and a tendency to keep his feelings locked tight. Omar grew up in a family where emotions were off limits. His mother, a single parent who worked long hours, once told a 15-year-old Omar, "Crying doesn't solve anything. Keep moving." So, Omar learned to move, through prescriptions, schedules, life, but never through his own heart. Last year, his teenage son, Samir, called him out. "Dad, you're like a machine. Do you even care?" The words stung, but Omar shrugged them off. Then, a few weeks ago, he found Samir upset over a fight with a friend. Omar's instinct was to say, "Toughen up." Instead, he paused. He remembered Samir's words and thought, "He needs me, not advice." He sat beside his son, put a hand on his shoulder, and said, "I'm here. Want to talk?" It was clumsy, vulnerable, but it was a rebellion against his mother's script. Samir opened up, and for the first time in years, Omar felt like a father, not a problem solver. These small rebellions, Zara's steady response, Diego's review reading, Lila's journaling, Omar's openness, are the foundation of emotional mastery. They're not flashy, but they're real. Each one is a choice to respond, not react. And with every choice, you're not just breaking old habits, you're crafting a new story. A story where you're not chained to your past, but the author of your future.